Most podcasts die before they hit episode 7. It's called podfading, and it usually happens because too much time was spent on the things that don't matter yet and not enough time on the things that actually keep a podcast going. So if you're starting a podcast today or you've released your first few episodes, I want to give you a minimalist guide to podcasting. No fluff, no links to expensive gear, just the advice that gives you the best chance of still enjoying this a year from now. So tip number 1 is start smaller than you think you should. Podcasting looks simple from the outside, but in reality, it's going to ask a lot of you over time. The biggest mistake I see beginners make is going all in straight away. They buy lots of gear, they line up guests, and they promise schedules that they've never actually lived with before. And a few episodes in, it starts to feel heavy. So instead of asking, how do I make this impressive? Ask, how do I make this easy enough to keep doing? That shift alone saves most podcasts. Tip number 2, if you can't explain it clearly, the topic isn't ready yet. If you can't explain your podcast in 20 seconds, the topic probably needs work. Broad ideas don't give people a reason to care. Specific ones do. You're not trying to make something for everyone here. You're trying to make the right person feel that this was made for them. And the only way to do that is to narrow in way more than you think. Go a step further. Keep niching down. Clarity here makes everything else feel easier. Tip number 3, be honest why this podcast exists and from a listener's point of view. So a lot of people want to start podcasts without really knowing why. So fame or monetization or brand building for your business might be good reasons for you, but they're not reasons a listener can connect with. So before you hit record, try and finish this sentence. This episode is worth listening to because it helps you. And if you can't answer that clearly, don't hit record. Tip number 4, keep episodes shorter and more focused early on. So most people are busy. They're listening between other things. They're out on walks or they're doing something and listening in the background. So when you're starting out, 15 to 25 minutes is plenty. One main idea, one clear takeaway. And actually, it'll force you to be more focused and give more value in that time. If somebody finishes an episode feeling like you've respected their time, you'll actually leave them wanting more. And they're far more likely to come back. Tip number 5, don't overspend on equipment. I see this all the time. People spend a lot of money on microphones and setups, and they never actually release an episode sometimes. Good gear doesn't make you a better podcaster. It just raises the pressure. A simple USB mic or a decent headset is more than enough to start. You don't need a studio either. You can start by using Riverside or even Zoom. If you're still podcasting 3-4 months from now, then I give you permission to upgrade. But make it easy to show up at the start. Tip number 6, talk like a person, not like a host. You don't need a podcast voice or a radio voice. In fact, it gets in the way because it's not what people connect with. Podcast people are drawn to and connect with are ones that feel conversational, not performed, because that's authentic. And authenticity is what we're all craving in this current market. And here's an additional tip. Talk to one person, not a group, not an audience. I see people do this all the time. They say, hello, everyone, or tell the audience, or our listeners. But nobody listens to podcasting groups. This isn't a conference. And when you think about it, podcasting is actually the most personable medium in the world because not only do people listen on their own, they listen in their ears closely most of the time with their earbuds in or with their headphones on. So for that person listening, it sounds natural for you to speak to just them. It's a subtle change, but it sounds good to hear for the person at the other end. Tip number 7 leads on from that. Remember who this podcast is actually for. This is where a lot of podcasts quietly lose people. Long backstories and resumes about guests that don't help the listener. Early on, the listener is asking one question. Why should I keep listening? So don't go down the route of what most people do. An intro about what this podcast is about in general. Followed by, please follow me. Please like and subscribe. Please leave a review. Followed by, this week's guest is, and basically a resume or biography of the guest. Followed by, hi guest, please introduce yourself. It's what so many people are doing, but 3-4 minutes in, as a listener, I'm going, there's literally nothing you've given me here. You've given me no reason to keep listening. So when you keep all this in mind, your episodes will tighten up naturally, especially at the beginning. You've got to focus on the listener first. Tip 8, decide on the topic or tension and outcome before you hit record. So before you start recording your podcast, be clear on what this episode is about. What's the tension? What's the challenge? What are you trying to help people with? What will somebody understand by the end of this that they couldn't at the start? If you can answer that, the questions, the edit, and even the title and thumbnail and description become so much easier. Guests should support the topic, not replace it. So here's what most people do. They'll Create a list of guests that they think are interesting or impressive enough to speak on a podcast. But that's the wrong approach for me. What you should do is create a list of topics or tensions or challenges, and then assign the best placed guest to talk about that. Who's expert enough in that topic, in that tension, in that challenge, and actually help the listener. If you do it this way, you'll ensure you have a topic, listener first podcast and not a guest first podcast. Remember that nobody's here for you or your guest. They're here for what they can get out of it themselves. Tip number 9 is record ahead and remove the pressure. So don't launch when you have 1 or 2 episodes ready to go. Make sure you have a batch of them. And keep that as a buffer, 3 or 4 episodes as a buffer. Because if you don't do that, what's going to happen is what happens to so many other people. They commit to their schedule, be it a weekly schedule or whatever it might be, and then very quickly it catches up with them. And they realize they don't have anything ready for the Wednesday release and it's Monday. So then what do? They panic. They panic book guests that aren't really a fit for the podcast, or they start doing solo episodes when they're not really prepared. So consistency matters, but pressure ruins quality. So calm and steady releases beat rush ones every time. So if you're starting a podcast, don't aim to be impressive. Aim to be clear, aim to be useful, aim to be somebody worth sticking with. Most podcasts don't fail because people aren't capable. They fail because too much was asked too soon. If you keep things simple, stay patient, and think about the listener first, you're already ahead of so many other podcasts. If you're early on and want a second pair of eyes, that's what I do for a living. My website is podlad.com. And you can check out all the services I provide for podcasters there.